Well, what can you expect when you find out the details that really show you that most of the members, most of the people who own these newspapers and work as anchormen and editors are part of the same club? 262 members of the Secret Council on Foreign Relations are journalists, correspondents, and communication executives. We don't have time to go into that detail, but I've already done so in the DVD I made. It's like a 5-disc, I think this was a 3-disc box set, Weapons of Mass Deception, where we go into that Fabian network and name the names and show how that particular edifice works, especially in the American context. Here's a couple of examples, though. In a dramatic movie, Collateral Damage, which came out just as the war on Iraq is proceeding, in which the protagonist, the hero of the film, for those who haven't seen it, his wife and child are blown up in America while they're having lunch waiting for him, and an enormous terrorist bomb goes off, and those two people and many others are killed as he's coming to pick them up. And then he tries to take the law into his own hands to find out who on earth did this and what's the reason. While you see in a split second, while he's at his computer trying to do, he's in desperate pain, and he's trying to console himself by looking into who would have done this. You see this clip. It's very short, and it says, "Anti-democratic forces, bloodthirsty fascist troops attacking the people." And on the right you see, is this cursor working? No. You see the cup, which says, has the love, and then you see a clip of the family that has been taken from him, right? In the very next scene, he raises a cup to his lips. It's an absolutely split second, and on it, and this is, made in the 90s, I believe, you see the symbols for Europe. You see American flag, and beneath it you see the stars of the globalists. So again, just a small example, but see, taken together, when you take all of these examples together, you find out what's been going on. Or you only have to look at the ad copy. Here on the left of your screen is a Nazi propaganda poster, and on the right is a corporate American, years later, image for the meat industry. Funny choice. Well, of course, now, look, it wasn't the meat manager that thought this up. All companies go to advertising agents who know what to do, and they have the resources, they have the intelligence, and they have the images and designs that they know. And look at this. Absolutely in your face. For instance, here's a more up-to-date version. The logo for President Barack Obama, which everybody should be familiar with, shows, obviously it shows the 3 striations, which is a Masonic, but then of course you have the sun. You have the famous image of the rising sun. He's changed it slightly, but if you look at that, you just make out the 3 striations, these sort of beams of light or rays, and you see the sun, and that turns out to be actually from the famous god of ancient Egypt, Aton, which was the god of great importance to the pharaoh Akhenaten. And in fact, if people followed my thesis, we talk about Obama's connection to the Atnas, not as other people have been saying that he's biologically connected to these people. It's an ideological connection. All right? That's all you need. In some cases with other people it is biological, but mostly it's an ideological connection to these Atanists that I write about. In fact, the very word Barak has many meanings. It actually means lightning, or in Hebrew it means the lightning flash or the light, like Akhenaten's Aton, the light. But also Bar is Hebrew for sun, and Ak is short for Akhenaten. It's an interesting coincidence, I guess. But there's the solar disk, you see, of the famous Akhenaten, and I see that very much in the logo that he's using, and some of the other esoteric imagery that surrounds him. For instance, the pyramid. It's not that he came up with these ideas, but somebody did. The idea of the Egyptian pyramid. And these symbols, of course, are sacred to whom? To Freemasons, and Obama is a Freemason, which is a hierarchy. Now, Gore Vidal in Dreaming War says, "It has been no secret that corporate America openly and generously pays for our presidential elections. They also own the media, which is kept well nourished by disinformation from executive-controlled secret agencies like the CIA. Media also daily assures us that since we are the most envied and admired people on earth, right, that affluence again, everyone else on earth is eager to immigrate to the US so that he can share in the greatest pie ever baked. And there's really no such thing, says Swinton, as an independent press in America. Not a man among you dares to utter his honest opinion. Were you to utter it, you know it would never appear in print. I am paid to keep my honest opinion out of the newspaper for which I write. Were I to permit a single edition of the newspaper for which I write to contain an honest opinion, my occupation would be gone in less than 24 hours. The man who would be foolish enough to write his honest opinion would soon be walking the streets in search of another job. It is the duty of the New York journalist to lie, distort, to destroy and revile, to toady at the feet of Mammon, and to sell his country and his race for his daily bread, or what amounts to the same, for his salary. We are tools and vessels, he probably meant vassals, of the rich international bankers and their affiliates, such as the Council on Foreign Relations, behind the scenes. We are marionettes. These men pull the strings and we dance. Our time, our talents, our lives, our capacities are all property of these men. We are intellectual prostitutes. And you only have to ask, well, you can't because he's passed on, but if you ask people like Bill Hicks and the hassle that these people who just try to spread a little laughter with a little intelligence had to suffer at the hands of David Letterman and the media conglomerates to stop them, to silence them, you'll see completely what John Swinton has been saying is the truth. The great British novelist and writer J.K. Chesterton said that journalism is a false picture of the world, thrown upon a lighted screen in a darkened room so that the real world is not seen, and the unreal world is seen. We live under a secret government, conducted by a secret process called publicity. And Congressman John Rorick, he said that the Council on Foreign Relations, dedicated to a one-world government, financed by a number of the largest tax-exempt foundations, and wielding such power and influence over our lives in the areas of finance, business, labor, military, education, and mass communication media, should be familiar to every American concerned with good government and with preserving and defending the U.S. Constitution and our free enterprise system. Yet, the nation's right to know machinery, the news media, usually so aggressive in exposures to inform our people, remain conspicuously silent when it comes to the Council on Foreign Relations, its members, and their activities. Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi minister of propaganda, said that this is the secret of propaganda. Those who are to be persuaded by it should be completely immersed in the ideas of the propaganda without ever noticing that they are being immersed in it. And the American philosopher Vernon Howard said the man who does not know what it means to be under psychic hypnosis is probably already under it. Now you should pat yourselves on the back, because I am assuming that the people here understand that there's a thing called psychic dictatorship and psychic hypnosis, and that you can be under it, implying that you're not under it. And Huxley goes on to say in his work, it is perfectly possible for a man to be out of prison and yet not free, to be under physical constraint and yet to be a psychological captive, or to be under no physical constraint and yet to be a psychological captive, compelled to think, feel, and act as the representatives of the national state or of some private interest within the nation wants him to think, feel, and act. The nature of psychological compulsion is such that those who act under constraint remain under the impression they're acting on their own initiative. The victim of mind manipulation does not know that he is a victim. To him the walls of his prison are invisible, and he believes himself to be free. That he is not free is apparent only to other people. His servitude is strictly objective. It goes back to, again, this idea of the social persona. And it goes back to this concept that we were talking a little bit about earlier, that you can't understand what's happening today. You can't understand why the present and then the future is going to take on the form that it will until you understand the process. And so for the schools and the media, one of its most pernicious elements is this simulation, this whole obscuration of history, which is why people like myself, our work is so much into history. It's because you have to put in the foundations. You've got to look. It's like when you come to the peak of a mountain.